people you used to know who are no longer here. Not because they've died, not because they've moved, but because they've quietly stepped back, retreating from the noise of the world. No sudden goodbye, no dramatic exit, just less. They answer messages a few days later, or not at all. They cancel plans with soft apologies, or stop making them. They shrink their digital lives to a dim glow. Their presence fades like a distant signal, hard to trace. And yet they are still watching, still breathing, still feeling. Behind every disappearance, there is a reason. Sometimes quiet, sometimes loud. Often it is not about escape but about survival. This is not the story of those who left recklessly. This is the story of those who disappeared gently, and the psychology that made it necessary. There is no announcement when it happens. No clear day, no final word. You don't even realize it at first. One moment they were replying to a message. The next, they're not. But it doesn't feel like an emergency, so no one really asks. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they need space. Maybe they're on vacation or resting or just not in the mood. Except the maybe never ends, because they never come back. Not quite. This is how some disappear. Not with a bang, but like a slow tide pulling away from shore. Quiet, unseen, patient. They begin saying no more often, canceling plans, skipping events. They slip out of group chats with a polite heart emoji. Their social media presence shrinks to stillness, profile without pulse. They start to speak only when spoken to, or not even then. The world sees it as distance, but inside them it is a retreat, a quiet folding inward. Not because they hate the world, not because they don't care, but because they are tired of proving, explaining, performing, carrying. Tired in a way that sleep doesn't solve. There is a particular silence that falls over those who are stepping back. Not cold, not defensive, just still. It feels like standing in a room that's slowly emptying of furniture. First the chairs go, then the pictures, until one day you're sitting on the floor, and maybe no one notices you're still in the room. People around them will call it ghosting. They'll say, they've changed, or why are they being like this? But it's not about attitude or attention. It's about saturation. Somewhere along the line, their system grew overloaded. Too many alarms, too many small cuts, too many roles to keep performing. The mind copes, the body protects, and one day the only strategy left is to vanish. Not out of weakness, but instinct. They are not trying to be mysterious. They don't want anyone to feel sorry. In fact, they hope no one even notices, because explaining would ask for more energy than they have left. So they simply fade, into silence, into solitude, into slow days where nothing is asked of them. They become a blur in the peripheral vision of the lives they once held close. And still, the world keeps ticking. Markets rise, birthdays happen, laundry piles up, cities buzz. But in some quiet apartment, maybe with a window cracked open, someone is learning how to breathe again, alone. How to sit with pain without distraction. How to let the phone ring without guilt. And maybe you wouldn't know anything is wrong, because they're still answering. Just slower, just softer. Grief doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it tiptoes through your life wearing a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Grief isn't always about loss of life. Sometimes it's just losing the version of yourself that was able to keep up. This chapter is the beginning, where a person doesn't slam the door on society. They just let it close on its own. And behind that door, they sit, not broken, not angry, just quiet. So quiet, you almost forget they were there. But they remember everything. People don't disappear without a reason. Something somewhere came before the silence. And often it wasn't a single moment, but the slow stacking of 1,000 smaller ones. Tiny disappointments that became heavy. Invisible hurts that hardened into armor. Conversations where they weren't truly heard. Rooms where their name was never remembered. Dreams that dissolved quietly in the background of louder lives. Sometimes it begins in childhood, where attention wasn't affection, where being strong earned praise and softness felt unwelcome, where emotions were scolded or ignored or turned into invisible homework for a child too young to carry the weight. A person becomes invisible when they are taught that visibility costs too much. So they begin to shrink, even when they're still growing. By the time they are adults, they have learned the choreography. Smile when spoken to. Don't ask for too much. Be the friend who listens, not the one who needs. They become efficient, capable, but somewhere behind their usefulness there is flooding. In the workplace, they overfunction. At home, they over-apologize. In relationships, they overgive. The world only sees the strength. No one sees that it's built on exhaustion. There is an ache that comes from always trying to hold in what no one ever asked about. And over time, it calcifies into silence. Not always sadness, just saturation. Too much of everything, and nowhere to put it. And sometimes it isn't just childhood. It's betrayal. A friend who vanished. Parent who disappointed. A lover who promised forever, then walked away like it was nothing. It's grief, the kind that never got time to breathe. Loss that kept needing to smile through the next meeting, the next dinner, the next obligation. No space, no pause, just forward. Always forward. Sometimes the world builds highways into people's lives but forgets the exits. Everyone wants access to the parts that serve them, but no one wants to hold space for the parts that fall apart. So they learn to leave, quietly. For some, it's not pain but pace. This world moves fast, faster every day. Success demands networking. Algorithms demand attention. Culture encourages constant visibility. But not all humans are built for soundtrack-level living. Some hearts beat slower. Some minds need quiet to think, space to feel. When that isn't offered, withdrawal becomes the only protest. Not to harm, but to protect themselves, their sanity, their soul. And that's what many don't see, that the retreat is not always despair. It is sometimes refusal, to perform, to hustle, to shout when speaking softly feels more honest. In the quiet, there's often clarity. I cannot belong to a world that does not pause, they think. I cannot keep showing up while vanishing in the process. So they begin to unplug. From busyness, from performance, not as a cry for help, but as relief, because sometimes the only way to feel real again is to become a ghost to the places that never saw your full self to begin with. This is the quiet why, the cause that hides beneath the surface story, not always dramatic, more often deeply human, intensely private, and when it is named, not fixed, not judged, but simply named, it softens. It stops being something to run from and begins to feel like understanding. And in that understanding, the hush makes sense. The quiet isn't dangerous. It's sacred. The first safe place they've known in years. Every retreat has a pattern. Even when it feels like a collapse, it is still a response. Psychologically, disappearing is not the absence of coping. It is the coping. Some withdraw to survive what they never learned to meet head-on. And though it may look like avoidance to the outside world, to the nervous system, it's protection. Fight, flight, freeze. Most know these as instinctual responses to threat. But there is one more, the one not often named. Fawn, the quiet appeasement, the automatic shape-shifting, the smile when you want to scream, the silence that comes after years of trying. And when all those fail or burn out, comes something even deeper, shut down, not because they don't care, but because their system is overwhelmed, past capacity, tired of options. The science is clear. Exposure to prolonged stress can shrink the brain's ability to regulate emotion. The body begins to interpret chronic busyness as danger. The nervous system becomes hypervigilant. Even a text message can feel like a threat. To cope, the body down-regulates. Pause. Hide. Withdraw. A form of self-protection wired deep into our biology. We are animals, after all. If the forest is unsafe, the bird returns to its nest. Not to give up, but to wait for calm. Personality also plays a quiet role. Those with anxious preoccupied attachment, who long for closeness but fear abandonment, may overextend themselves until they crash. Then withdraw, not out of indifference but shame. I'm too much, they think, even when all they ever did was try. Others, with avoidant attachment, may never fully open at all. Their withdrawal is default. They learned early that relying on others risks pain. So silence becomes home, and closeness becomes threat. Introversion is not the same as withdrawal. But in a world that privileges charisma, the quietly attuned are often misread. When they step back, people think they've gone missing. But often, they've just gone inward, seeking restoration in stillness. This behavior shows up early. A child hides under the table when voices rise. A teenager shuts their door when connection feels too sharp. An adult becomes bad at texting when the weight of being known feels brittle. It's not always fear. Sometimes it's overstimulation. Too many inputs, too little rest. We are not designed for constant reachability. The brain needs idle time. The heart needs pauses. Psychologist Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." But inward looking doesn't always feel enlightening. Sometimes it just feels lonely. Withdrawal becomes the path only when every other road has grown loud, crowded, or untrustworthy. It becomes the final signal of a system seeking quiet, not as an escape but as regulation. And yet, guilt often clings to this behavior, because people are praised for presence, not absence. Showing up is rewarded, but taking space, that's treated as a personal failing. That is where shame enters. Why can't I keep up like everyone else? Why does being around others feel so heavy? Why do I always need to be alone just to feel normal? But the truth is, this is not brokenness. This is biology flavored by experience. An adaptive response to emotional environments that offered little room for authenticity. The person isn't disappearing to punish anyone. They're going where the noise stops. Sometimes that's a forest. Sometimes that's a room with blackout curtains. Sometimes it's deleting every notification for the first time in months. In these moments, they're not hiding. They are healing in the only way they know how. From the outside in, it looks like silence. But on the inside, a fragile voice is finally being heard. Not by the world, by themselves. They thought it would feel like relief, to step away, to quiet the expectations, to stop responding, giving, showing up in ways that drain them. And for a while it does. Silence is a balm. Solitude, a slow exhale. But it doesn't stay effortless. Because even inside the quiet, something else begins to speak. The guilt, the ache, the private voice that asks, was this a mistake? This is the war that happens beneath the stillness. It is not laziness that keeps people away, but conflict, a tension between the craving to be known and the fear of being seen too closely. Withdrawal is rarely clean. Even as they pull away from the world, they still check the messages they won't answer, still scroll through lives they aren't part of, still hope someone notices they're gone. But just softly, not enough to invade, only enough to care. Underneath, there's often a deep sense of ambivalence. I want connection, but people exhaust me. I want to be invited, but I can't handle yes. I want to matter, but not be watched. They miss people, but more than that, they miss being safe with people. There's a difference, because distance doesn't mean they've stopped loving. Often, it means they love so quietly, with such careful observational detail, that putting it into words feels clumsy. They remember birthdays. They notice patterns. They think of meaningful replies they never send. But all of it gets trapped beneath a layer of emotional fog, where picking up the phone feels like climbing uphill in heavy weather. This is not a lack of love. This is a lack of capacity. Still, shame is a loud companion here. Creeps in through the cracks. You're not a good friend. You're hard to love, hard to help. You're disappearing and no one even cares. Some believe these thoughts. Others wrestle with them. But almost all feel the tension, because they remember the life they lived before the quiet. The version of themselves that laughed more often, that made plans without dread, that trusted. They long for that self, not because it was better, but because it didn't feel so complicated just to exist. Now, even replying to a message can stir an internal debate. Am I ready? Will this bring questions I can't answer? Does this person deserve my silence? And perhaps most painful of all, have I become forgettable? Loneliness doesn't wait outside withdrawal. It lives inside it, not because they've disconnected from others, but because they've disconnected from the part of themselves that felt known in the presence of others. To retreat is to lose a mirror, the one that reminds you you're alive, feeling human. In isolation, time blurs. Mornings are quiet, nights are long, and every unanswered message feels like a decision deferred. But here's something few understand. For these people, returning without being ready can be even more damaging, because showing up half-healed, with a forced smile and a performative story, only deepens the wound. So they wait, alone but not by accident, silent but still feeling. In the quiet, there are flashes of longing, moments where sunlight hits the window just right, and they wish someone were there to see it too. Not talk, just witness. But the war isn't over. Some mornings they reach for their phone, then stop. Other days they write a message, then delete it. It's not cowardice. It's deep sensitivity meeting uncertain safety. So much of them wants to be known, but only by someone who sees the silence not as rudeness, but as residue from all the years they weren't allowed to rest. Until that someone arrives, they stay quiet, torn between two opposing forces, the fear of being invisible and the fear of being too seen. The quiet is not endless. It stretches, yes. It wraps itself around the hours, softens the corners of life. But at some point, silence begins to speak, not in words, but in feeling. Something changes, and as the silence stretches past its usefulness, they begin to hear beneath it the heartbeat of unmet needs, because solitude can only hold us so long. Eventually, the soul starts asking for more. Not crowds, not stages, just presence. Someone to listen without fixing. A space where they don't have to explain why they were gone. Only need to say, I'm here now. There's no one moment that heals everything. But sometimes there is just enough warmth, just enough safety to try again. One message is answered. A walk turns into a conversation. An old playlist is unpaused. The world hasn't changed, but they have. Now they touch it differently, not with urgency, but with curiosity. There's a vulnerability to returning, because disappearance offered a kind of invisibility cloak. Stepping back into contact means risking misunderstanding again, being overwhelmed, being misread. But they begin slowly. They learn not all presence has to feel performative. Not every interaction has to drain. They begin to find people who move slower, speak softly, who understand the language that silence teaches. Friends who don't ask where they were, only how they're feeling today. And in those moments of new openness, it becomes clear they always wanted to belong. They just needed places that didn't ask them to disappear to survive. The silence doesn't vanish. It still visits. But now it has context. Now it has meaning. Now it no longer feels like the end, but the pause before another beginning. They don't come back all at once. They don't throw open the windows and announce, I'm here, because healing is never theatrical. It's small. It's showing up for one cup of tea with someone who speaks gently. It's replying to one message, not all, but knowing that one is enough. It's walking out the door again, not to perform a version of themselves, but to remember what fresh air feels like on skin that stayed too long in shadows. This is the quiet return to the living, not the old speed, not the old self, but a new rhythm, one that's slower, more intentional, protective, not defensive. They flirt with life again, not in grand gestures, but in half smiles, curious glances, brief eye contact with strangers on the street. They find moments of connection that ask nothing in return, because what they need now is simplicity, clean friendship, uncomplicated affection, conversations that don't feel like performance reviews. Spaces where they can say, "I don't really know how I'm doing," and hear, "That's okay. You don't have to." They begin choosing softness, which means learning to say no, without apology, learning to text back, when it feels good, not out of guilt. They realize they don't need every room to understand them, just a few souls who love the quiet language they speak. Healing does not look like noise. It looks like structure, tiny routines that hold meaning, watering a plant in the morning, going to bed at a consistent time, reading something beautiful before reaching for their phone. It looks like boundaries, not the walls that block everyone out, but the gates that open only when safety is present. Healing is the art of editing, cropping out the chaos, deleting the obligations that were never soul-nurturing, keeping only what aligns. And yet, integration is not linear. Some days they falter. A burst of energy leads to overcommitment, followed by retreat. Some days feel like regression. But now, the difference is they don't shame themselves for it. Because healing is not about speed. It's about compassion. They begin to trust their own pace. They begin to realize disappearing was never the opposite of healing. It was the beginning of it. The cocoon, not the coffin. People around them might not understand the gaps, the silence, the inescapable stillness that shaped them. But that no longer matters, because they understand it now. They lived it, and it softened them in the most unexpected ways. They don't long for the old version of themselves. Not anymore. That version betrayed too many of their needs to survive. Now, they build a self they can stay loyal to, one that doesn't need to vanish to feel whole, one that doesn't confuse overextending with being loved. And most beautifully, they begin to notice something new. The world, for all its chaos, also contains soft corners, places where people hold space, where a half-broken voice can speak and not be interrupted, where someone disappearing for a while isn't met with anger, but with warmth. You're here. That's enough. That becomes the doorway through which they learn to live again. Not louder, but deeper. Not more visibly, but more truly. They may still disappear sometimes, but now it is not erasure. It is rest, a quiet return to the self, so they can return to others, not as a ghost of who they were, but as someone real, someone whole, however unfinished. They never fully come back. Not in the way some people hope. Not as the endlessly available version. Not as the energy that says yes to everything with a smile. No, some part of them remains quiet. Not damaged, just changed. They still fall silent mid-message. They still let birthdays pass without replies. They still vanish for a few days, or weeks. But now, those disappearances are not emptiness. They're rhythms, breathing spaces, a life lived in waves, not lines. And behind each wave, there is reverence. Because silence taught them something that noise never could. They are allowed to disappear, but they no longer have to disappear from themselves. They learned how to stay with their own pain, to sit inside it without flinching, to soften rather than escape. The world doesn't always welcome this kind of living, prefers momentum, busy hands, loud happiness, and yet it needs people like this, people who teach patience by their pace. Not everyone is meant to run through the world. Some are meant to pause, to step outside the current and watch it move, to return only when the return feels true. These are the ones who carry wisdom in their quiet. They speak in slower syllables. Their laughter is earned. Their presence is honest. And somehow, just being near them, you remember room exists for rest, for breath, for imperfect human rhythms. In their silence, there were questions. And now, in their stillness, there is peace. They don't need to tell the story. You can feel it. In the way they look at others softly. In the way they move closer to fewer things, but with fuller heart. All the vanishing, the nights with the lights off, the days spent invisible, none of it was wasted. It shaped an intimacy with life that is rare. Because once you stop fearing the silence, you begin to hear everything. The sound of your breath, the ache behind your thoughts, the gold hidden in your quiet longing. So now they live not loudly but deeply. They are not the first to disappear, and they will not be the last. There are others still stepping back now. Friends who've gone quiet, voices you haven't heard in months. Don't chase them. Don't try to fix what isn't yours to carry. No, instead, they are still here, becoming, undoing the noise, peeling off the layers, learning how to feel again without performing. Their withdrawal is not rejection. It is rebalance, a sacred recalibration. And one day, if they come back, they will offer you something rarer than charm or certainty. Presence. Rooted, soft, and unmistakably real. The kind of presence you can lean into without fear of breaking it. Because they've already broken and rebuilt. They are still quiet. But now the quiet is not absence. It is depth. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. The echoes in the silence.